Okay, guys, this video, with all the changing environments as far as the economy and the ecosystem within the U.S. and the increase in violence, a lot of people wanted to know what I think is coming, and so this video is going to be about what I expect to happen. And I want to get this out of the way because on a lot of the groups I see this is that people say all you need to do is, let God, their God, the Creator, deal with this matter. And the thing is, the way I see it is you can't expect the Creator to save you. We were given a free will, free choice for a reason. If the Creator would save us, no matter what's coming, then that kind of takes away from the point of free will. You can't have both. You can't have a all-powerful entity protecting you and keeping bad things at bay and getting your life out of the freaking mud, but yet have free choice at the same time. So I tell people to, with every hardship that's going to come, at first you got to get your mindset in the right order. You got to expect that with every obstacle, every hardship, no matter what it is, expect there to be opportunity and look for it. Most people, when they have expectations, they look at the bad side. They expect the worst to happen. And I tell people that your expectations are going to be like blinders, like on a horse that prevents the horse from seeing anything except what the rider wants him to see. It's going to prevent you from seeing what truly is. It's going to prevent you from seeing all the opportunities to go around, to go under, to go over hurdles. And you can be crushed and destroyed by your expectations. When you have expectations on certain things, they tend to overshadow the possibilities of getting through it. And, there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong. Our whole system, our whole society is based on a set of systems. Those systems are not time-tested, tried and true. They're relatively new. We've been in the industrial age for less than 100 years, or about 100 years before we jumped into the information age. And nothing has really been pressure tested. Take Texas, for example. Just in the past week, you have seen how hard it is for people who think they are prepared to get basic things like heat, like food, like water. You have stories of people going out because they can't drive anywhere because the roads are ice or there's something falling across it, whatnot. People going out on foot and searching all day for food. Like, these guys think they're prepared. They got guns and they got their freedom. They'll take a stand and stuff like that. But what are you going to do with a snowstorm? You going to shoot it? Like, you're going to find a pool of water underground, shoot it a couple times, and all of a sudden it's clean water? It don't work that way. Water is a big thing. We have to have water. And look how difficult a simple snowstorm made getting clean water next to impossible. Right now, there's still hundreds of thousands of people who are just now starting to get the city water back on, who are told to make sure you boil it, make sure you have a filter, make sure you purify it in some way, shape, or form. And this is something their tax dollars billions of dollars, tax dollars, went into developing all these water systems and power or water plants to purify water, and now you still got to do it at home. Nothing has really changed, and that just took a simple snowstorm to demonstrate how fragile our systems are. I expect water to become very, very, very expensive in the future. A lot of the water purification companies are trying to install reverse osmosis machines up and down the West Coast, and there's even some talk of the East Coast also. And the reverse osmosis, it allows them to quickly purify salt water. It gets everything out, including the salt, and that's going to become a very big business in the future. I can so foresee that. And water, the price of water is going to be like the price of milk in some places where it's $10 a gallon. I would not be surprised if it jumps up to 20 or 30 within the next 5 years in some places. I would not be surprised at all. In some places, getting a gallon of water, used to be $1. Now it's $3. So it's tripled just in less than a year that I know of. It's tripled. And that's something I do. I got a notebook that I every now and then I'll go through different areas, and they go down to our local produce market and just, bag of potatoes, this is how much it costs, write the date at the top, this is how much this costs, and just go through key things and see how the price fluctuates. And just within the past year, some things have went up $1, some things have went up 15 cents, but consistently everything is taking a step up every few months. And a lot of people think, well, $1 extra isn't that bad. Actually, it is, because just charging an extra penny for the exact same thing, but yet minimum wage not really going up as much, it's going to get harder and harder and harder for people to get things like food and stuff like that. And we're just on the subject of water, something you need pretty much every single day in order to survive. And it's going up. And getting clean water is getting more and more difficult. I mean, look at how many places like Flint, Michigan, they still don't have, they're on public water, and they still don't have potable water from the faucet. And this has been a long time now that they've had to fix that. And it's still, they've dumped hundreds of millions of dollars into fixing it. Still freaking broken. Still got to ship truckloads of bottled water in for people to simply drink. And that's not the only city. There's thousands of cities across the U.S., and we are a first world country. It's like this. It's sad. It's very sad. But that's something that's going to be very, very, very difficult. And one of the things that you don't hear too often with this water is how bottling it and shipping it affects the environment. And we're not just talking about the pollution from the trucking or the increase in plastic water bottles that are just getting thrown out into the ocean or into a stream or whatnot. When you take water out of an area, it doesn't come back. I know everybody understands that water evaporates, goes up in the clouds, condenses, comes back down, now it's on the ground, and that cycle repeats. But when you take that water from the ground and you ship it across the country, it does not come down back in that same place. So those areas, like take California for instance, are becoming drier and drier and drier. What people don't know is that California used to be the world's leading producer of rice. But now you have huge chunks of that golden Central Valley that cannot produce even grass. Like go through Bakersfield sometime and you'll see just thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of once very productive farmland that, due to a complete lack of water and other things, contributed to it, but grass can't even grow. There's not even enough water for weeds to grow. So what makes you think that fruit tree is going to grow, or that huge tomato plant, or those squashes, or any number of crops that needs consistent water? It's not. So when you bottle it up and take it out of that area just became a little bit drier. And when you consistently do it like California did, they're shipping millions of gallons of water out. And I think the estimate is close to 2 billion gallons of water have been shipped out of California. Okay, so that don't recycle back down. And so it's very, very dry compared to what it used to be. And that also compounds into other effects that most people do not pay attention to. So when you're talking, we'll just round the number down to 1 billion, okay? A gallon of water is about 8.5 pounds. Okay, so you take out 1 billion gallons. Now the whole land is 8.5 billion pounds lighter. Then people may think, so freaking what? Well, California and a lot of other states around the countries around the world are bordered by faults. Okay, so take this table. If I hit it with 10 pounds of force and the table weighs 10 pounds, it's moving. If it weighs 500 pounds, it'll vibrate, but it won't move. If it weighs 2 pounds, it's going across the room. So when you have those plates shifting and subducting or shearing, and now it's 8.5 billion pounds lighter, that same amount of shock is going to do more movement. So that whole brilliant ideal of making all this money by bottling our water and shipping it out and selling it turns out to destroy their crops, destroy their food production, and increase the severity of the earthquakes. So water is a very, very important thing. It needs to be kept in its local ecosystem, its valleys, whatnot, and that's just not happening. And the more difficult it becomes to purify water due to all the pollutants and stuff like that, the more they have to start taking from areas that are a little bit easier to purify and ship that out. And those areas become drier and drier. And so this has a compounding effect over years. I mean, with California, it just took less than 2 decades, and you've seen a drastic change in results in it. I mean, there's whole huge chunks of 20, 30, hundreds of thousands of acres of once productive farmland that is no longer productive just due to that, or primarily due to that. And nobody's really taking this into account. They only see their immediate need. We need to fix this need right now. They're not looking at the long-term effect. And so people are basically stealing the productivity of land from future generations to feed themselves right now. And in a sense, it kind of makes sense, because if you can't survive, then you can't reproduce to have kids. So a lot of people think it don't matter. They'll fix that problem when they get to it. Why on earth would you want to hand the next generation or two generations a shitty problem? A problem that they're not going to be equipped to fix. It's really immature and really stupid to think that way. And it's caused by that greed. Like with the California's water problem, it started with greed. People wanted more money. They saw, oh, we can make money. They didn't look at the long-term effect. And so it ends up shooting them in the foot. It ends up shooting future generations in the foot. And, they tried all sorts of different fertilizer sprays and chemicals, trying to force plants and stuff like that to grow with a complete lack of water, and it didn't really work out. But that had the unintended effect of looking at Bakersfield area in and of itself. What happened to the birth defect rate? They shot up through the roof. Like, it's higher than pretty much the rest of the country combined, because all the chemicals they sprayed trying to fix the problem from a lack of water that was caused by their greed. So the root cause to all their pain and all their suffering is greed, if you go back far enough. But now they got completely destroyed ecosystem, a greater chance of total destruction from earthquakes, or at least larger destruction from earthquakes, and their birth defects and severe birth defects are just through the freaking roof, because they tried to patch up the system, and it's not good, because more and more areas are going to do the exact same damn thing. And I know that because you can already see a lot of areas taking those first few steps. They're not 20 steps down like California is. They're maybe, between 5 and 10 some places, or 2 and 3 in other places. There's a few that are, between 12 and 15 steps down. So they're not quite as bad, but they're taking the exact same path. So they'll get there. Just give them another decade and they'll be there. So water is going to be a problem. Period. Okay? We have to fix our water solution. And the best way to do that is to stop freaking polluting. But that's next to impossible to stop at this point, because people do not want to give up their comfy, cushy lifestyle. So I don't see that problem going away. I see that actually getting worse, Another big problem that I expect is food, Again, part of it is due to the complete lack of water, but another part of the reduction in food production is that we're growing 3, 4, 5 crops a year on a field whose soil is only naturally able to do 1 or 2. So we're completely depleting the soils, and you see that in the Midwest right now. You have farmland that nobody's grown anything on in almost 10 freaking years, because the soil is so depleted. And they've tried throwing fertilizer and different chemicals and putting GMOs on there, and it's worked a little bit, but it's still going down. The food production throughout the Midwest is going down, and that's only part of the problem. With the depletion of the soil is very bad. They're not letting it rest. They're not rotating their crops to where some crops are putting things in and others are taking it out and putting other things in. So they're not doing it intelligently. This is something Mother Nature has figured out over millions of years, basically, how to keep a stable ecosystem. and we're just destroying it because we think we know better and we actually don't know better. You know, proof is right there. And they say we're losing approximately 3 acres per minute. Okay, this is coming from a lot of agricultural websites. But what they don't say is that amount is just from the farmlands that are being sold to developers and getting paved over for a shopping mall or a housing complex or a subdivision. That's not including all the ones that are just completely depleted of nutrients, that are basically sterile soil. So we're actually losing more than 3 acres per minute. And I think it really is on the slow end for the most part. And I think that's very stupid and is going to become a much larger problem because our food production is going down. If you look at all the websites, they show you the different agricultural websites. Like, look at Nebraska's agricultural websites. It'll show that food production is going down every year. But what is the world's population doing? It's going up every year. So, you know, our capability to feed people is going this way, and our amount of mouths to feed are going this way. So that gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon people are going to be fighting over food. It has to come to that point. I do not see any scenario where it does not come to that point. And again, its root cause is greed. It's not to provide food for people. Well, we're growing 10 crops a season or a year on this land that should only be growing one. They're not doing it to be able to feed more people, because most of that food goes to waste anyway, as it spoils before it gets to the consumer. You got a third of the world's population that is starving to death. Okay, you have another third of the world's population that is barely getting by. And then you have the upper third, which pretty much 100% of the Americans are in that upper third, who are using food for fuel. We have yanked out wheat crops and grown corn for ethanol. Corn with no nutritional value that can't feed us. Like, we can't survive off of it. But we use it to make stuff to put in our fuel. So you got the upper third using food for fuel. So we're depleting these soils just for an additive for fuel. And it's very sad that it's come to that, but that's a reality. You have to look at the problem as is, otherwise you can't predict what's next. And the soil depletion is just going to get worse and worse, because they're going to try to do more and more. They're going to try to find this miracle chemical that's going to allow all this stuff to grow in places where nothing is going to grow. And it might work for a little bit, a season or two, or it might help a little bit, but in the end, it's not. It's going to fail. It's going to be another thing that fails. And all these GMO companies are saying, hey, let's come switch to our crops. They can grow in less nutrients and stuff like that. Yeah, they can grow in less nutrients, but they still need those nutrients, which will still be depleted. It's just you can pull another crop or two out of there before it's depleted. And the thing is, they have less nutritional value and a lot more adverse reactions to it. And you got major companies, and Bill Gates even is now the largest farmland holder in the US. And that's going to start becoming a form of control, because if you look how it used to be, whoever controlled the food controlled the people. Okay, and the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So it's always been human nature to control the food, so you can control the people. The kings, the queens, the royalties always tried to control the food first and foremost, because you do that, the peasants will do what you say. And that's what these companies seem to be switching everything to. They have their agenda, their ideal of what they want done, and they're putting themselves in a position to force you to bow down to their will. Now, I don't know what their will is. I'm not going to take a guess. I can take a guess, but there's no guarantee of its accuracy. I can just say with 100% accuracy that they're positioning themselves to control the food so they can control the people. Okay, and that's never a good thing. There will be fighting over the food in the future. I'm willing to bet on it, because again, food production is going down, population is going up, and certain companies are trying to buy up all the producing farmland, and they're offering these farmers a ridiculous amount of money, and the farmers are like, I could retire if I got this amount of money. And so they choose to do that, not looking at the long-term effects. Just like with California and their water, they weren't looking at the long-term effects. They're only looking at that short little bit of money, that immediate return, that greed. They're allowing the greed to take over. And I have my own viewpoints on that. To me, money is just an ideal, because a dollar isn't worth a damn thing except for the value you place on it. And since it depends on who you give that dollar to, its value changes. It is an ideal. And if you look, since Nixon took us off the gold standard and it actually became a currency, all the way up until 2012, the US dollar, from the 70s till 2012, the US dollar has lost 95% of its value. Okay, so that last 5%, we've probably lost another 2 or 3% of that. So we only got a couple of percents left of that value of that. And how long is it going to take us to lose that? We're not too far off. That's going to cause the whole economy to go kaput. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, buy gold. Oh, buy this. Oh, buy into that." If this book here was solid gold, its value is what somebody who I'm trying to barter with puts on it. To me, that's pretty much useless. If I had a bottle of water and you had a 30-pound brick of freaking gold, we're not exchanging. That gold's useless to me. That water can keep me alive another day. So, it's stupid to try to say, "Oh, buy gold. Oh, buy this stock. Oh, buy that stock." Because you're trying to feed into a system that is breaking. It's like, "Oh, look, that camel is struggling to hold all that weight. How about this? Instead of adding another 5 pounds of bricks, let's add another 5 pounds of straw, because straw is lighter than bricks. Never mind the fact that it's still 5 pounds. We're still adding weight to something that's about to break. Let's just throw it on there. And eventually that straw that broke the camel's back is going to drop." I do believe we are past a tipping point, for a simple fact that food production is going this way, human population is going this way, and it's getting farther and farther apart. And so it's going to get to the point to where you can have $1,000,000. You ain't buying a loaf of bread from me, because that $1,000,000 is worthless. Like, that's what happened with the USSR when it collapsed. There's people that were filthy rich. It collapsed less than a week. They did not have enough money to buy a single loaf of bread within a week. And these guys were the millionaires, you know. So trying to buy your way out of it by putting your money or buying into gold or different stocks or different companies is just foolish. If you want to do that, by all means, do that. But to me, that's foolish. You know, the best thing you can start doing right now is growing your own garden. Okay, a little bag of seeds costs a couple bucks, but you can grow tons and tons of food off of that. Literally tons of food off of it. And make sure you save some of the seeds with each little bit of crop you grow, so you have something to plant next time. But that's really going to help you. But right now, with all these GMO companies, Bill Gates, all that stuff, they transferring all their stuff into food and farmland, and a lot of the farmlands that they're not purchasing are drying up and getting depleted. You know, pretty soon all the farmland in the U.S. are going to be held by a select few people. And so the prices of that are going to go up. You know, it's a way for them to make money. That's all they're looking for. They're not looking to help you out. You know, they don't even know your name. They don't really care about your plight. They just want to make money. And so I believe there's going to be a war fought over food, you know, and water. Food it has to be. With water, there's a high potential for it to happen, but it doesn't have to be. Something else I want to touch on that kind of involves everything is, I don't want you to think that if it does come to a war, say nothing magical happens, say if it does come to a war, I don't want you to think that everybody's out trying to kill you. A lot of these so-called prepper groups, or, you know, homesteading lifestyles, like they want to say, you know, everybody's your enemy and this and that and that. The thing is, all these people who are trying to basically steal from you or whatnot, they're just normal human beings like you and me, trying to feed their family. Okay? They are in a desperate situation. So don't do what a lot of these guys are saying and just up and fucking shoot them. You know, try to reason with them. Get your community together. You know, if you got excess seeds, help your neighbors plant a community garden and do something. But do not look at each other with hate and disgust, because these people are just doing what you'd be doing in their position, which most of you will be doing. You know, it's food. You have to have it. You can go longer without it than water, but you still have to have it. You know, another problem that I expect to see in the future has to do with our power grids. You know, you see it every now and then, every time a windstorm or a winter storm or a hurricane happens. You know, our power grid goes down for long periods of time. Again, prime example, Texas. A simple winter storm that the people in Montana deal with pretty much every day during the winter. In Texas, it just flatlined. Pretty much half of Texas was without power within a day. You know, it's a fragile system. it's always going to be a point of failure. People are too dependent on it, and again, these are Texans who claim that they have guns, so they're prepared for anything, but you can't shoot the cold. It's not going to go away. You know, so you got to have backups for that. You got to expect it to fail. Anytime a storm rolls in, you should always expect it to fail. And there are a ton of things that you can do with our power grid to protect yourself and help your neighbors out. But in the end, becoming dependent on it, a broken system that pretty much always fails somewhere in the U.S. during severe weather is it's foolish. Don't become dependent on anything. Have your backups. Take care of them, maintain them. Another big thing with this whole power grid is, if you've been watching the news and stuff like that, our new president Biden has pretty much given it over completely to China. So now China is starting to run things and control things and being able to manipulate things. And I really don't like that idea. Don't matter what country we are, I know for a fact another country does not have my country's best interest at heart. That's like saying the guy in Mississippi who doesn't even know me or my family has my family's best interests in heart. It's foolish to think that way. I'm not saying they're good people, I'm not saying they're bad people. It's just, I know I am going to fight harder for my family's well-being than some guy somewhere else who's never met them, who will never meet them. So giving control of a large part of our infrastructure over to another country which has historically been our enemies, who've gone head to head with us, who even now with our taxes and our trade wars and stuff like that, like, go at it with them. I know they're not going to do what's in our best interest. So it's foolish for Biden to do that. I'm pretty sure he was bribed. I can't prove it or anything like that, but I guarantee you there's money exchanging hands somewhere along that line. And even if our system wasn't such a fragile electrical grid, giving it over to another country makes me want to pull out of it even more. That's just how I am. Like, you don't have my best interest at heart, I'm not going to be part of your system. I'm not going to be hooked up to it, dependent on it. And I don't think you guys should be either. And there's all sorts of things that could be said about our electrical grid throughout the whole U.S. A lot of the dams are not producing as much electricity because rivers are drying up. Some states are planning on the destruction of some dams, which is going to reduce it, and they're going to try to switch over to what they call green energy, so solar and wind, which has less of a damaging effect on the environment. But the thing is, being able to make a solar panel takes a ton of manufacturing processes, so a lot of chemicals and a lot of CO2 emissions for that. And then we have to bring in all these precious metals to make them with, and those are imports from other countries, slave labor and stuff like that. And they're going to start becoming rare. It'll take a little bit longer for them to become scarce. But, I like the ideal of just going strictly solar or strictly wind. but it's not really feasible with our attitudes, our mentalities, and China just doesn't seem to give two shits about it. So, and since they're pretty much in charge of our electrical grid right now, I don't foresee us going to them, even though I would like clean energy. You know, I think China will try to push more nuclear energy, which everybody says, oh, that's clean energy. Yeah, until something bad happens. Look at Fukushima. Still producing thousands and thousands of gallons of radioactive waste that's getting dumped into the ocean. And it's going to be like that. Not for the next month or two, but you're talking about thousands of years, right? If you look up what Fukushima is dumping almost daily, you know, it's dumping tens of thousands of gallons of radioactive waste into the ocean. And it's not just that it's radioactive waste, it's also the type, you know, because it's doing cesium, radioactive cesium. Now, if you guys look at the periodic table, you'll see cesium and calcium in the same column. That's because our body treats them almost the same. And our body absorbs calcium and puts it into our bones. So the cesium, our bodies absorb it and put it into our bones. Unlike iodine, like if you're taking a ton of iodine, radioactive iodine isn't really going to have an effect on you because it's going to be flushed out. It doesn't happen with the radioactive cesium. You know, it gets absorbed, put into your bones, and now it's with you. It's with you for the rest of your life. It's going to cause you cancer and premature death, you know. And that's just part of the problem that's happening over there. You know, they're still trying to do some cleanups. You know, it's just a complete waste of money. And yes, historically, nuclear accidents have been less frequent than other accidents with different power generation systems. But the thing is, that's due to the fact there's been less power plants, nuclear power plants. And it doesn't matter if the number is less, if the devastation that it causes is greater. Look at Chernobyl. They're actually building a building that's bigger than the power plant that is on wheels, tracks that will go over that building and seal it off to help absorb and keep the radiation in there, because it's still spewing out tons and tons and tons of radiation. And that won't be finished being built for quite a few years. And then once it gets put in place, it's only going to expected to last 100 years. But the radiation output is supposed to last over 100,000 years. So it's like a band-aid for a bullet hole, you know. It's stupid. You know, I like that they're trying to do something, and as of right now, that is the best we can do. So I want them to go forward with it. It's a very brilliant plan because it's the best plan we can do. Does it fix the matter? No. Does what they're doing in Fukushima slow things down? Absolutely. I want them to keep doing that. But does it fix the problem long term? No. And so nuclear disasters have far more devastation. Okay, so it's stupid wanting to go to nuclear. Absolutely stupid. Just because one minor accident and you have thousands of generations of destruction. Okay, and I'd rather have solar panels that malfunction, starts a little fire, Maybe at worst it spreads into a wildfire that burns up 20, 30, 40,000 acres. That's not that bad because within a few years, all that stuff's regrowing. Could people potentially die? Absolutely. But that problem's relatively dealt with quickly. It's easy to manage. It's easy to evacuate people from, and then once that's put out and everything's good, people can be moved back into the area. Nobody's ever going back into Chernobyl. Nobody's ever going back into Fukushima. We do not have the capability to make it so. Hundreds of thousands of years will have to have passed before we can even begin to contemplate that. Unless we find some miracle cure that's going to all of a sudden stop all that radiation and get rid of it magically, which we don't. We have some promising leads. Like if you look, there's a black fungus that it actually absorbs radiation, and it grows and absorbs more radiation, which causes it to grow and absorb more. So we're trying to figure out the fine tune that and make that work, but that's not happening anytime soon. It's a promising lead. A plant that feeds off radiation because it'll absorb it, and now it's not there. So it's a good lead, but we still need further research and study to see if it's even feasible, and if it is, like, get it into action. What do we need to do get into action? But as of right now, nuclear energy is no go. Absolutely no go for me. Personal opinion, wind generation, those giant turbines do have some issues. Like every time you scale up any piece of machinery, it becomes harder to work on, more expensive to work on. Minor things become bigger issues. So I think with the wind, we need to scale that down, make smaller turbines, easier to manufacture, easier to produce. Like, it would be very brilliant for all new manufactured homes, all homes built, to have a miniature wind turbine included with them. It won't produce all the electrical needs, but it will greatly reduce their dependency on the power grid, and at the very least it should be enough to be able to heat the house if need be, which isn't going to take that much. We have normal home wind turbines that can do that. They can you can have all your lights in your house on and all the heaters on. So that I don't know why they don't start including that in the manufacture of new homes. That would be a brilliant thing to do, because now each and every home has its capability of providing the minimum necessary to keep the occupants alive, and it reduces their dependency on a system that is prone to failure. Every year there's a failure of some sort somewhere. So, the electrical grid or electrical system is going to become a very problematic thing in the future, because we're not doing anything to fix it long term. And everybody says, there's only a few places in Texas that failed. Yeah, but everything else was weakened. So next year, or next time this happens, there's a greater potential of all those other places that didn't fail to fail. So instead of having one or two places where it failed, you're going to have 100. So, because that's what happens when things are put through a severe weather, they tend to get weaker. And our power system is already prone to weakening and collapsing due to bad weather. So I would not be surprised if the next winter storm that hits down there, a larger chunk gets put out and destroyed, and it's going to take them even longer to get things back up and running. That's logic dictates that's going to happen. So people need to become self-sufficient. And as long as they're not self-sufficient in that manner, it's going to become a severe problem. And luckily, we didn't really have too many fatalities. Most of the fatalities in like Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, New Mexico area, it was due to people's stupidity. Like closing the garage door, having their car running, expecting it to heat up the house. Oh, it heated up the house, but the exhaust killed everybody inside. It's sad. It sucks that it happens, but it did happen, and that's due to stupidity more than anything. So that winter storm could have done a lot more damage, and I expect in the future it will do more damage and will cause more problems and will take more lives, as long as everybody keeps relying on the system. And that brings us to the last thing that I want to brush in on this video is our financial system. We are headed for a total collapse of the American dollar. Every time we encounter a problem, there's one of three things that we can do, as far as our national debt goes. And it's either stop stupid spending altogether and start paying off our debt, which is going to alter our entire world's economy, because America is a powerhouse. So that will change the entire world's economy. Least likely to happen. We can stop paying all our debts, or any of our debts, and keep stupidly spending on shit we don't freaking need, which again is going to alter the entire world's economy. It's going to flatline our dollar, because the moment we stop paying on any of our debts, we lose 1, 2, 3% of the American dollar value left. Nobody's going to trust us. Nobody's going to want to work with us. It's going to become a global disaster, but America can pretty much take care of itself. It's going to be difficult. People are going to make a lot of sacrifices in order to do it. We can do it, but that's not recommended either. Or the third option is to print more money and keep being stupid, which is what historically our government has done, which again just flatlines the value of our dollar and changes the entire world economy. And so that's most likely what we're going to do, because ever since Nixon, that's what we've done. Nobody has a solution. Okay, just print more money and throw that at things, as if that's magically gonna all of a sudden work one day, So that's foolish, and we are headed for a big economic disaster. The value of our dollar is tanking. Nobody really likes how our economy is being handled, but at the same time, nobody has a solution, and I don't have an immediate solution. Yes, it is nice to say cut all stupid spending, all frivolous spending, which is 99% of the federal budget is on stupid, pointless shit, and start paying off our debts. But the thing is, you got to get everybody in the government, all our elected officials, or at least a majority, to agree upon it. And they all have their own personal goals, own personal agendas. So they're not going to do that. You can try, but the thing is, nobody in those positions of power want to try. And that's very sad, because that's in the best interest of the American people and the world economy too. Because the moment we start getting our national debt paid off, it's going to strengthen our economy, and all those people that loaned us money that we're now giving back, it strengthens their economy too. So it can have a global positive effect, but it's not going to happen because each politician has their own personal agenda, and the people that are behind the scenes paying them, the special interest groups and stuff like that, will lose money. Some of them will lose money, some of them will gain money if that happens. And because some of them lose money, they'll put an extra few million in certain politicians' pockets to get them to say, no, not happening. And that's all that needs to happen. Unfortunately, money talks. And I don't have enough money to make it talk. So, at least not nearly as much as these billion-dollar companies. So our economy is in for a rude awakening. All the leading economists say that we're going to have another crash, and it's going to be devastating. A few of the people that I follow and read up on their books and follow their blogs and watch their interviews, they predicted the 2008-2009 crash, and they said it was going to be bad, and they were pretty much spot on. They moved their money out of certain things and put it in other things, and they made millions during that collapse. So I kind of trust them when they say that this next one, it's going to be very hard to predict what the outcome is going to be, just because there's so many factors. And when these guys who are very good at making money off of economic collapses are saying, I'm not so sure about this one, we know it's going to happen, we just not sure exactly what to do, that has me, as somebody who don't have the same level of education, financial education in that matter, that makes me a little bit uneasy, because if the experts are not sure, then how can I be sure about what to do during this? I'm pretty sure they're right when they say it's coming, because all the signs are there. Anybody with any amount of true financial education can see that we're not in a good position. Our dollar's tanking, and we're set up for a disaster. We're standing on the powder keg, trying to light a match. That's all we're doing. And it's not good if we manage to get a match going, because things blow up then. And don't know what it is that's going to tick that freaking bomb off, or, if it's already on a timer. But it can be potentially very, very, very devastating. Anybody who has any savings in like 401ks, stock market, stuff like that, all that's going out the window. People's Social Security's going out the window, which is something a lot of people are banking on. We pretty much, a majority within the next year or two of the baby boomers are going to be fully retired and dependent on Social Security and Medicare, which are all government funded, and so there's going to be a lot of money to pay out. And the government historically just prints money, which drops our dollar and just gives it away like it's free candy and magically comes out of the air. And we're going to be in what's called an inverse pyramid. So you're going to have a small percentage at the bottom putting into the system, but a large percentage at the top taken out. So, due to the number of all these people finally getting on Social Security and everything, which over the past 5 years have been happening at a greater and greater number. So less people putting in, more people taking out. It's just like, it goes back to the soil. When you take out and you don't put back in, it gets depleted and goes tits up. Our economy is the same way. More people taking out, not enough people putting in, eventually it's going to hit zero. How long that happens, how long it takes before that happens, I don't know. but there will be an economic disaster. There has to be. We're set up for it. We're primed for it. So there's a lot of special things you're going to have to do to take care of it. Some people are saying, oh, jump into gold. And it's like, gold's useless unless I really, really, really want it from you. And I have something that you really, really want. Like if I have food and water and you have gold and I want gold and you want food and water, we can make a trade. But if I don't want gold and I have food and water, you ain't getting none of it. So I say put your money towards your skills and your education to be able to survive this hardship. And, I'll be doing a series of videos coming up soon of what I think you should do, what I think you should be aware of, different skills that I think are important and that will help you, and hopefully those will be of great benefit to you guys. I want to do it in video form. I was told I should probably write a book about it, but video form works better. It's nice having a book because, like, if you're out there doing something, you can always flip it open and refer back, make sure you did all the steps, whereas a video, you got to go back and watch the whole video and try to figure out if you did everything. With a book, it's easy to skim through. It's faster and powers off. Book still works. A video, not necessarily. But, I might do both. Might do one or the other. I'm definitely doing some videos. Got a Q&A coming up that I'll be videotaping. We can make an open chat so people send me their questions and I try to answer it the best I can. We've done that in the past and that worked out great. It actually went on for 4 or 5 hours, well into the night, longer than what anybody expected, and is very good. So we'll be definitely doing that in the future. And these, what should I do? What should I be aware of? How should I, start getting myself ready for what is to be expected? Right now, I say do your research. Don't assume that I'm right on anything. Go out and do your research. See if you come to the same conclusion. If you do, great. Okay, we're on the same wavelength. If we don't, and you can prove something wrong, then let me know. Because if I'm going about things and I'm wrong, I would love it if you'd correct me. Okay? I'm not going to sit here with this attitude that I know everything. I know what I know, but I also know there's a lot I don't know. And I know there's things that I don't know just simply because I'm not aware of them even being in existence right now. So if you can educate me on any one thing, that would be awesome. If you can prove me wrong on any one thing, you'd be my best friend. But I'm pretty sure if you do your research, which I highly encourage you to do, I'm pretty sure you won't prove me wrong on anything. But that's something to be tested and shown. I'm pretty sure that I'm spot on with everything I've been paying attention to. I got notebooks upon notebooks of different things I've been observing. Some things, like I said, like just going grocery shopping, writing down the prices of key things, I do that all the time, and I compare going back a year, 2 years, 10 years, 5 years, different things. I do a lot of research on different advancements, different changes in each industry, and try to predict how that's going to affect things, because the two things that can never go away are food and water. We absolutely have to have them. The other thing that's not likely to go away is electricity. It can't go away. We're too dependent on it. If all of a sudden electricity stopped, 99% of the world's population would die. Sad thing, that's how it is. And we're at 8 billion, so that's a lot of people dying, you know. So we're too dependent on electricity, but our power grids are inherently prone to failure from nature. So those are 3 things that I want you to pay particular attention to. The economy, yes, it is devastating. You know, you'll be losing your job, you'll be losing your savings, you'll be losing a lot. But you don't need an economy to survive. Throughout history, there's been a million different ways to barter and trade and be self-sufficient that has kept us around longer than any economy has ever existed. But we've always needed food and we've always needed water. Those will never go away. Those will always be necessities. And generally for heat, we've used wood in the past, but now we're using primarily electricity. So, you know, that's also a must-have, in my opinion. And yeah, you know, there's some people that have no electricity. They just use wood fire. That's fine. Just use that electricity and wood fires, or fire something to heat interchangeably. But the difference between a wood fire and our electrical grid, you know, wood fires are easy to control. The power grid is hard to control. And the power grid, something happens to it 1,000 miles away, it shuts it down in your neighborhood. You know, something happening 1,000 miles away is not going to affect that fire in your fireplace. So it's a little bit more resilient, but you still got to put in a lot of work to be able to have dried firewood, enough dried firewood to last winter and then some, you know. So both have its pros and cons. I just say, since we are a first world country, and mostly, well, all of you, since you are viewing this, are dependent on electricity, always take that into account above the economy. The economy is the 4th thing you should be paying attention to, but water, food, electricity come before that. Those are your big 3. Then your economy is your 4th one. Pay attention to those. Watch how things are changing in them. Watch how they're going this way, that way. And not just in your area. Look at other areas, because what happens over there will eventually happen right here. Okay? What happened in Flint, Michigan with the water crisis is eventually going to happen in other cities. And over the past few years, you have seen it. You have seen it happening consistently throughout the country. Texas, winter storm. Now they all have bad water. Now they all have to, at home, filter and boil it to make it safe. Granted, it's not as bad as Flint, Michigan, but it's still the same, where what you relied upon all your life is now gone. Your public water is useless. At least it gets water to your house, but then you have to go through the lengthy, time-consuming process of purifying it and making it potable. And if you don't know how, you're screwed, because there's a lot more to it than just boiling, especially once you take everything that can possibly go wrong with water into account. So pay attention to those things. Focus on those things. Stay tuned for the videos on what to expect, what you should be doing, you know, according to my opinion, and these basic few things. And I'll try to get these videos produced and out. And actually in the process of putting my thoughts in a book form. Still don't know if I'm going to make a book. It'd be an ebook so people can click and download it, so you don't have to wait for Amazon to not deliver like they have been in the past few months. Or I can just use it as a basic narrative for a whole series of videos. So stay tuned for that. Stay safe and do your research.